before we get to the results, when the vote came in November of 1972, Bob Stevens was the county judge, later Attorney General, as you know, and the Supreme Court Justice of Kentucky. I suggested we take a retreat to Shakertown. We took all the elected officials of the county and the city, the department heads, and we went down there. It was not a closed session. The press came too. And we had staff work to prepare for that because we wanted to talk about, all right, now the people have said we want to consolidate. Now, physically, how are you going to do it? Well, we decided to consolidate. This was in November '72, so we had that period of time till November 1 of '74. We decided to merge fire services, police services, and parks and recreation by contract. So we get that would be 60% of the employees of both government, and we did that. And the governing board for that period of time would be the elected officials of the city and the county, if you had disciplinary actions and those things. And the fire chief, Earl McDaniel, had been there forever and was a power unto himself. He was very much in favor of it. And we had a new police chief, and he was from St. Louis, and he thought it was a good idea. And there was some concern. For instance, when we got the two police departments together, we have a pretty strong academy there for training police officers. There were some county, some of them go to Eastern State University, but we had some county people that hadn't had much training, or they'd started in the program and sort of washed out or quit, but that didn't mean they couldn't get a job as a county police patrolman. So and he might be a sergeant in the county at this point, and here's some fellows that went through the program who are just patrolmen now, and they said, I'm not going to take orders from that dude. He didn't pass the course, and I don't think he knows enough. And so there was some unhappiness there. And that's when I decided to, I told Luke about this earlier, to get some outside professional help. So IBM's general manager was a friend of mine, Claire Vaux, as a matter of fact. And I asked him, I said, let me have your best human resources, we call them personnel directors then, I guess. I want an alone executive to come in here and work with these employees of both governments to keep them happy and hear what their problems were. So he said, okay. So you have, his name was Sullivan, Tom Sullivan. He came, had an office next to mine at the City Hall, and he worked with all of the policemen and firemen, and he worked out all those problems. For instance, the fellows that the city patrolman didn't think was qualified to tell him what to do and lead the fray, they gave him jobs initially for maintenance of vehicles or communications or something where you weren't in a position to give directions to these other people. And then they got the training. We insisted they get the training. So pretty soon, Team A and Team B were just Team A, and they forgot all about it. We had too many chiefs, assistant chiefs. Well, the chief of the county police was happy to be an assistant chief because we raised his salary. That covers a lot, you know. And they were underpaid, more or less. The county was. So we raised up the salary of those people, and they said, you know, give me whatever rank you want. You raise my pay, I'm happy. And then the city patrolman said, you didn't raise my pay. Said, well, you didn't get hurt either. And so we kind of go through those rough spots. But that was true of other persons. And then we had a lot of people we retrained. And I said we had too many assistant chiefs, but we took the position. There's a pretty good period of time when people retire or move away, 10% a year at least. So over time, these folks retired, and we got down to the number we really needed. So we carried a few for a few years. But then that took care, that was fine. But I think consolidating those departments before official merger came in early by contract made a big difference. And then I told you we filed a lawsuit to test the charter's ability. Now, there are other ways to measure whether the merger was efficient or not. Let me say up front, I don't think you consolidate governments to reduce the cost of government. Let me explain that. You will be more efficient. For the dollars you do spend, you'll get a lot more in terms of efficiency. You don't duplicate and do all those things. But the truth is, local government generally needs every dollar they can get, and we have had mandated on local government now other services, particularly in various types of health-related items. But we were able to do this. I've checked this several times. At the time of the merger, January of '74, the number of full-time equivalent employees from city and county government was 2,107. Two governments. And the population at that time was 180,000. In November of '97, which, 23 years later, the number of full-time equivalent employees was 2,470, and the population was 245. And what it shows was that at the time we consolidated, we had one full-time employee for every 85 citizens. And in 1997, we had one full-time employee for every 100 citizens. So in a sense, we were getting more efficient. And at the same time, we were doing more things. You talk about landfills and all those things that are required now that get very expensive. Our population, now we're expecting the 2010 census to state that Lexington is going to have about 293,000. We haven't gotten that information back, but I think that's accurate. And of course, when we consolidated, we had 180. That's, say, in 40 years, or 36 years maybe. But our public employees did not increase as fast as population, which makes it more efficient. We didn't have to. Our population is going up about 1% a year now, which means it's going up close to 3,000 people net a year. But one thing that changed the game for us, Lexington doesn't have a sheriff now. One of the sheriffs before, no, take it back, doesn't have a jailer, sorry. And so that apparently is a legislative position, and it's not a constitutional office, so that you can do away with that person, which we did, because, and then, I'm trying to cut out folks, there's even some discussion of cutting out now the county judge executive in the county. I don't think they'll get that by. That's a constitutional amendment to do that. But I know this good lady, and she's been 30 years, but in Fayette County, the county judge has very little to do. He or she would have the responsibility when a constitutional officer dies, resigns, is put in jail, like we've had some do. The sheriffs collecting taxes, they would not always render full accounting. So this county judge would appoint the person to serve until the next election. That's about all that I know. She can marry people, but that's sort of outside of government responsibility. So the fellow that ran for the county judge position went on the basis, he said, when I get in there, I'm going to try to get a constitutional amendment and do away with the county judge executive in Fayette County. I doubt if you'll get there, but anyway, it shows you what you at least can conceive of doing to become a little more efficient. So let's see. Here's a map. We had a special committee assigned to create districts to run in. And this was the first one. We had the at-large, and we were at that time about 14,000 people per district. So they studied this very carefully. A UK professor with a committee, and we had the 12. District 12 is the district outside, is sort of the real rural section. So you have somebody maybe be able to speak with some authority from for the farmers. And the rest were, now I think I may, I think I'm going to close now and open this for questions. If you all want to take a little break, we've been at it almost an hour, and no one has nodded off that I can tell. I commend you, because this subject is very specialized, and unless you're interested in governance, it can put you to sleep. But there's a lot. I know you have a lot on your mind that you might want to ask me. How do we do this? How did that work? And why did you do this? But you don't hear any talk now about unscrambling the egg. And people generally, you know, half the people in Lexington don't remember what it was like before we had consolidated government. And we were able, I will say in the early days, particularly when the federal government had money, to get a lot of grants because we were viewed as a progressive city. We got $1 million just to buy the hardware to consolidate the police departments and be more responsive to the people when they call in 911 and so forth. Don't put that mentioned, but now our fire services are so efficient that the whole built-up community is in a class 2, which is pretty low, if you will. Anybody in the insurance business? Nope. Well, anyway, check it out. It's pretty good if you're a class 2, and so that saves people a lot of money in terms of their premiums. Now, you all, of course, as I made notes talking to Luke, we've got about over 100,000 people in the county, broken up between E-Town, Radcliffe, and smaller cities, Vine Grove, I guess, and 4 school districts and 4 planning districts. Well, you've got your work cut out for you if you want to consolidate. But if you can explain, and I would say this, though, the people to vote on it, you know, voting just for good government is not very sexy. What you've got to do is find the hook, which is some way to save people money in their pocket. That gets their attention. Or in our case, like we had so many septic tanks failing and sewers were necessary, it was really hurting them, that made a difference. And a lot of them had experiences that were not good for fire and police services. But you've got to find something that really gets through to them if you want to do this. It is well worth doing. It'll be here forever. In 225 years of Lexington's existence, it is by far the most eventful and successful governmental change.